You're watching the latest edition of Financial Wellness. I'm Randy Alvarez. On today's show, we have one of the top real estate agents in the country. He's here today to discuss how to properly market your home. My advice, stick around for the latest edition of Financial Wellness.
The Wellness Hour, an in-depth discussion with today's top physicians and medical leaders. And now, your host, Randy Alvarez.
You're watching the latest edition of Financial Wellness. I'm Randy Alvarez. My first guest is Dan Ensel, Director of the Estates Division for Prudential California Realty. After attending UCLA School of Law, Daniel gave up a very successful career as an attorney in Los Angeles to sell real estate in Santa Barbara. That was 15 years ago. Since that time, he has become one of the top real estate agents in the country, consistently earning over $1 million a year. His name has become synonymous with the estate properties throughout Santa Barbara. He is Prudential's #1 agent for Santa Barbara County, the founder and past president of the Santa Barbara Young Professionals Club, and a featured author and speaker for the California Economic Forecast for residential real estate. Dan, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Randy.
Dan, we've invited you on the show today to give us some tips on not only how to buy a home, but also how to properly market your home. But first, your background. You went to UCLA School of Law. Tell me about that.
Well, I attended UCLA School of Law and earned my degree in the early 1980s, and then after that practiced law for a couple of years in Los Angeles, but always wanted to live back in Santa Barbara. So in the mid-80s, I made a career change and transitioned from law into residential real estate and moved back into Santa Barbara in the late 1980s.
So you've been in Santa Barbara now for how long?
15 years.
So the whole time it's been just real estate?
The first year I transitioned, I did law part-time, real estate part-time, and then in 1989 transitioned full-time into just selling real estate.
Okay, according to my notes, you worked with legal contracts having to do with real estate. Does that help you in your day-to-day work here in Santa Barbara?
Tremendously. I've had years of experience with real estate law, contracts, estate planning, tax. All of that comes into play with real estate. So it's been very helpful.
Let's begin with some of the mistakes people make when selecting an agent.
A lot of times what people will do is they'll just walk into a real estate office, the first person that greets them, they hook up with, that becomes their agent, or they'll call on a specific property, the person that answers the phone, that's who they work with. They don't know anything about the person's background, their real estate experience.
Is this how they normally pick agents?
It is for buyers, unfortunately, not necessarily with sellers.
Now you say unfortunately. Why is that unfortunate?
There is tremendous differences in people's training, background, experience, abilities, and I would hope that people would want to work with somebody who's really good, use the effort to sort of find out that information about that person and make sure that they've got the right person to help them out with the job that they need done. So it's unfortunate when people don't do it that way.
What specific mistakes can happen by picking the wrong agent, an inexperienced agent?
What you could find, Randy, is you could end up with somebody who has no background at all or no experience in the price range or the type of property that you're looking for, and yet you as the buyer don't know that when you go into it and you hop in the car with them or they're sending you information. They may be 1 week into the business and have no background with the forms or the properties or how the transactions work, how to get you out of trouble during the escrow process, how to negotiate for you. They may not know how to do any of that for you, and yet that's the person that's your agent representing you to find your new home.
Now, you mentioned negotiate. Is that a big part of the process and the experience you bring to the table?
Absolutely. That's one of the most important parts of it. As a buyer, you want to get the property at the best price and terms that you can, and you want somebody acting on your behalf that's a professional negotiator working for you as your champion, basically.
Now, with the price range of the homes in Santa Barbara, you're dealing with $1 million, several $1 million homes, and I guess an inexperienced agent could be intimidated, possibly, to negotiate those type of deals. But I mean, that's your expertise.
Absolutely. Yeah. But a new agent may just get bowled over by somebody with more experience, or a seller with more experience, or another agent with more experience. So
what about on some of the higher end homes? I think we've discussed off camera, people have their own attorneys handling the transaction. Does this happen?
A lot of times they'll have people involved in the transaction, whether it be an attorney, an accountant, a business manager, an advisor. As the price range goes up, you usually see more involvement from other trusted advisors or professionals in addition to their real estate agent.
Okay, and today's topic is for people that are listing their homes and how to properly market their home. But I want to ask you a few more questions about people out there that are going to buy a home in Santa Barbara. So what other things, then what should somebody look for in an agent that is going to show them property in Santa Barbara?
Ideally, what you want to look for is somebody who specializes in the type of property that you're looking for. Somebody that, if you're looking for an estate property, deals in estate properties, knows that market, has experience negotiating in that price range, can give you advice on financing, pitfalls to look out for, things about an area that would be important or significant that you would want to know about there. Those are the things that you should look for in a buyer. One way you can find out those things is to check the newspaper, see who's got listings of properties in a certain area of a price range that you're looking in. Ask for referrals from other agents that you know outside the area. Make sure they've got a good reputation for honesty, integrity, good track record. Those are the things that somebody should look for when they're selecting an agent to represent them when they're buying a home.
Are there people, and I guess there's not a lot, and this was a surprise to me, not a lot of people, I guess new people, flooding into Santa Barbara. Is that correct? I mean,
Correct.
It's a lot of but there are those people that are first-time buyers in Santa Barbara. Is that correct?
Yes. But what we get a lot of is some first-time buyers, but a lot of retired people coming from outside of the area.
Right, as first-time buyers in Santa Barbara.
Exactly,
So it's
yeah.
important, I guess, to find an agent that knows the area.
Absolutely.
Knows what's for sale, knows what may be a silent sale we talked about. Explain that too.
A quiet property for sale would be somebody who is considering selling, would show their house, would sell it, but doesn't want to officially list it, advertise it, and market it.
Is there a lot of that going on?
At the higher end there is, yes.
So a lot of the higher-end homes, you won't find it in the multiple listing.
Exactly.
So a lot of the great homes aren't listed.
Yeah, you have to know what's available, and you have to sort of specialize in that price range and know who would show their property, who to contact to get into some doors that aren't officially listed open doors.
And let's move on to marketing somebody's home. A lot of people list their homes. They list their homes with inexperienced agents. Tell me about what you do, by the way. When you take me through the process, somebody wants to list their home with you. What happens?
What I do, Randy, is I go meet with them, look at their property, try to figure out what it is about their property that's special and unique, what sort of buyers it's going to attract, and how I get the information to those buyers, present their property in the best light. So first of all, you sort of have to look at the property, think about it, and develop a marketing plan that's specialized for that property. So that would be the first step that you do.
So what else do you do?
First thing you do is you're going to try to present the property in its best light possible. That would be marketing the property. You're going to try to get some very nice photographs of it, get a nice color brochure on the property, put it on the website, and try to develop a good marketing advertising campaign for that property.
I mean, when somebody lists their home with you, I mean, you're putting it in several newspapers. You're spending a lot of money to market their home. I mean, you're truly marketing their home. You're not just putting a for sale sign up and putting it in the MLS.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yes. What a lot of people don't realize is the distinction between what a company does for somebody and what their agent does for it. A lot of people just get the basic, it's in their company ad, it's in the multiple listing service. What I try to do is give them the next level of service there, which is a lot of personal marketing and advertising. That would be the photo brochure, mailers to surrounding neighbors, distribution of...
Tell me about the photos to the neighbors. We talked a little bit about that. Tell me what you do there.
What I do there is I'll pick several hundred homeowners surrounding a new listing that I take, and I will mail them information that this new property is for sale. They already live in the neighborhood, they like the area, and they may have friends, neighbors, or other people who want to come into that area. So I let them know that the property is for sale.
Those
early on.
homeowners probably know people that want to live near them.
Absolutely, yeah, and they can pick their own
A
neighbors
lot
that
of
way.
agents, I think, miss that. They don't, I think in the basics, ideally you want to do that, but I don't see a lot of that going on or hear a lot of that going on. But you do that with all your clients.
Yes.
What else do you do that may be unique?
Well, what else we do is a lot of extra advertising. We will advertise, in addition to the company ads, Santa Barbara News Press, CASA, Montecito Journal, Real Estate Magazine, Los Angeles Times, Daily Variety, Hollywood Reporter, Wall Street Journal, whatever is going to attract buyers for this particular property. So I personally do a lot of outside advertising in addition to what the company does. And they do a lot of advertising too.
Now, while other agents, and we've talked off camera, are decreasing their advertising budgets, you're increasing yours.
Yes.
How so?
Well, I spend actually, between marketing and advertising of my own dollars, over $100,000 a year marketing and advertising properties. So I've really committed myself to giving the sellers who work with me the best representation possible out there with a lot of just broad range marketing and advertising of their property.
Well, Dan, tell me this though. So if somebody lists their house with an agent that doesn't have the budget you have, they can't put it in 5 newspapers. I mean, there's a huge disadvantage, isn't there?
Absolutely. The seller's not getting the same level of representation that they would.
But they're
be.
paying the same amount.
They are paying the same amount. Real estate fees, although they're negotiable, they're fairly standardized. So you may get the best agent in town, you may get the worst agent in town, it costs you exactly the same.
Dan, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, more about how people can effectively market their homes. You're watching Financial Wellness. I'm Randy Alvarez. We are here with top Prudential agent Dan Ansell. We'll be right back.
If I had just one more day,
I would go barefoot.
I would read the classics.
I would whisper something reckless in your ear.
If I had one more day, I would study another language.
I would fall in love again.
If I had one more day,
I would play in the sand.
I would be seen with a star.
I'd watch the playoffs.
I would take my family out to dinner.
And I would say goodbye to my daughter.
I would go for a ride with my baby.
I would take up flying.
I would see a lady in New York.
I would go to Nashville.
Play soccer with the boys.
Meet a president.
If I had one more day, I would hang out with friends.
every day is a gift, especially for a heart patient. At Guidant, we are pioneering a new level of life-saving cardiac and vascular technology to give heart patients another day, another year, another lifetime.
I would make a kid's day.
Guidant, it's a great time to be alive.
You're watching Financial Wellness. I'm Randy Alvarez. We're here with Dan Ansell. We're talking about marketing your home. Dan, do you think that people, when they list their homes, they don't look at it as a marketing project? Or even some agents I've talked to them, and I don't hear the word marketing. They just say, I'm taking a listing.
Correct.
With you, right off the bat, it was all about marketing.
Try to give the seller the best representation possible and not just put it in the multiple listing and hope that there's somebody brings a buyer along there. You try to really give them everything that the seller thinks and hopes that they're getting from you, and that is a marketing and advertising campaign designed specifically for their property that's going to get their property sold, best price, shortest period of time.
Well, you make it sound for their property, almost as if you're able to customize your marketing plan.
And each property
is that just
unique.
lip service? You're really doing that?
Oh, absolutely. Each property is unique. It's going to attract different buyers potentially. You have to try to figure out who those buyers are and how the best way to reach them, what's unique about this property, how to best put it forward in its best light possible. That's the goal of a listing agent, or should be the goal of a listing agent.
Okay, so with you, and you work with buyers and sellers, but in the listing arena, how important is it that on the high-end homes that you are able to weed out the looky-loos or the non-qualified buyers? Tell me about that. Tell me about that process. Is it a challenge?
It is a challenge because on the one hand you want to respect the agent who's trying to get their buyer in, but on the other hand you're trying to respect your seller who it's an inconvenience for them, it's an invasion of their privacy to have somebody coming in and looking at their home. You don't want somebody who's just looking at it for decorating ideas. You want somebody who's looking at it because they're really a legitimate buyer for that property. So you want to do some pre-screening with the other agent to find out that their buyer is a good prospect for this home.
Now, you mentioned LA Times, that you advertise some of these homes in LA Times. In what case would you advertise in LA Times and other times you don't?
It would typically be a higher end buyer because you have a lot of people who live in Los Angeles that their dream is to someday end up in Santa Barbara, but most of them don't have the ability to afford it right now. So it's going to be somebody that's going to be second home. So it typically is your wealthier clientele. So it's going to be a certain property that would lend itself to somebody retiring up to there or second home. So it typically is a more expensive property. A lot of times people from Los Angeles like the property with more acreage also because they don't usually get that.
What do you think the number one mistake, back to listing again, what's the number one mistake people make when listing a home?
They don't ask for anything specific from their agent in terms of what they're going to do from them. They just hope that they're going to get a marketing and advertising campaign for their property when all they really may get is just put it in the multiple listing, put it in the company ad, and hope that works.
So it's not the fault of the agent if they can't afford your $100,000 a year advertising budget.
No, I think it's
But
the
they
fault
lose, though. The person that's listing their home loses, I think.
Absolutely. I think it's the fault of the seller for not being selective. What they should do is interview agents, find out who's going to do the best job for them, get a written commitment from them, which is what I do for every seller, written commitment of everything I'm going to do for their property from start to finish, where it's going to be advertised, what I'm going to do in terms of promotion, distribution of information on their property, how I'm going to handle the escrow process. They get all that in writing up front, so there's no questions on it.
Interesting. What's the turnaround time on that with this proposal you're giving them, this marketing proposal? Is that what you call it?
Yes. I will have it to them in a couple days. Again, first step is I'll go look at their property, think about it, figure out who the buyer's going to be, how I'm going to market this property, who it's going to attract. Then I put it in writing for the owner, get it to them so they can look it over and make sure that what I'm planning on doing for them is what they're looking for in an agent.
Now, you're very busy. How do you deal with all of these clients that you have? I mean, you're the top agent in Santa Barbara.
Well, they're long days, Randy, but also I have a really talented staff who helps me out. I have 3 people who are, one is working just with the website, trying to keep that up to date, informational, and have another person who does brochure distribution, flyers, mailers, and another one who helps out with the quarterly newsletter.
Tell me about this newsletter.
What I've done is the last 10 years, I put out a quarterly newsletter to people in the Santa Barbara area, letting them know what's happening in the local real estate market. So it's sort of a combination of what has happened in the last few months, what's currently happening, and my predictions for the future. So these people get that once a quarter, what's happening in the local real estate.
So this isn't just self-promotion?
No, this is just information.
This is information.
Absolutely, and everyone who's a homeowner in Santa Barbara is interested in for most of them is their biggest investment. So I think that over the years they've respected that, the consistency of it and the accuracy of the track record of, me relaying the information of not only what has happened, but also what I think is going to be happening with the market.
Interesting. Okay, we talked earlier about how people normally pick an agent that they're going to buy a home, but how do they normally pick a listing agent?
Well, they're more selective about a listing agent, but they're not as selective as they should be. Typically, they will interview people, but not as many as they should. A lot of times...
How many should they interview, really?
If they do...
A couple?
3 would be fine, so long as they pick 3 agents that, they've already done a little homework, looked at some ads, made sure that they represent properties that are in the same price range and area that their property is in. Also maybe get recommendations from other sellers who have worked with these agents and make sure that they were comfortable with the job they did, also that they did the job that they said they were going to do for somebody. That's important.
Do you think that these people, sometimes, $2, $3, $4, $5 million home, but they don't look at selling their home as a big business transaction? Do you think that could be the case?
Absolutely, and it's not, again, for most people this is the biggest transaction that they're going to do, and yet they don't treat it that way. They'll still sometimes pick a relative, a friend, just an acquaintance, or somebody that somebody else knows.
You hear that? I have a friend that's an agent?
And everyone has a friend who's an agent, absolutely.
Right,
that shouldn't be your criterion who you work with. I mean, everyone has a friend as an agent, but you want to make sure that that person's your friend after the transaction.
Like a relative, they're using that.
There's 1,300...
But this is a serious business transaction, is what you're saying.
Yeah, there's 1,300 licensed members of the Board of Realtors in Santa Barbara. That's a lot of real estate agents out there. You want to make sure that you get the right one.
Dan, though, tell me this, though. I mean, with all the marketing you're doing and everything you're doing to help market their home, the home is worth what it's worth based on MLS. So all your experience, all of your marketing, do you really think people are getting more from their home by dealing with somebody like you?
Oh, absolutely. If you've only got one buyer for your home, then you're only going to get a certain price. If you've got 20 people who want your property, they're going to bid it up to the highest value that you possibly can get for it. So that's the job of the marketing and advertising, to bring out as many potential buyers as you can for that property and also present the property in its best light. If you only got one buyer, you've got really very little room to negotiate.
So your goal is to create a bit of a bidding war, or just more than one buyer, 20, 30 people looking at the same property? Is that common?
It tends to be, if it's done properly and orchestrated well. Again, as the higher you get up in property prices, the less chance there's going to be for multiple offers, but frequently my properties will sell with multiple offers.
So you would say then, and I'll move on, but the people are definitely going to get more from an agent that properly markets their home than somebody that just puts it in the MLS and puts it in their, a box in the newspaper.
Absolutely. And what you want to do is you want to make sure that that property is not priced too low, where they leave money on the table, not priced too high where it doesn't sell at all. You want to have it effectively priced and then also marketed so you get the most buyers out there for their property. That's how a seller is going to get the top dollar for their property and also have it sell in the right period of time.
Take me through the process that you do when putting together the right price for their home. You meet with the potential seller. What do you do?
I go over the comparable sales with them and show them what is actually sold, which should have a lot more importance to them than what they're competing with. A lot of times sellers will be putting a lot more emphasis on the competing listings, what also hasn't sold, and that's a very common mistake out there. What you want to do is say, what have buyers paid for a property? What's it really worth? Not what does my neighbor think or wish their property is worth.
Sure.
That's the common pitfall that a lot of sellers make, is they get caught up in the listed price versus the selling price. And in our area, there tends to be very little difference between the actual last listed price and what it sells for. Sellers don't have to build in a lot of negotiation room. The only properties that are selling are the ones that are priced fairly close to where they should be. So that's a common mistake also, so people will build in way too much negotiation room. They don't get the showings, they don't get the offers, they have nothing to negotiate with.
Sure.
So that's a real common mistake.
Okay, people watching this that are considering listing their house or selling their home, this in-home, I mean, this is you one-on-one or one of your assistants? I mean, do you go into their home?
That's me.
Is it a couple-hour process?
It depends on the person. Sometimes, you know, they'll want to spend a lot of time with me. They'll want to get in my car and drive around and see what I'm talking about versus just seeing it on paper. So we'll go out in the car. I'll show them from the outside the properties that have sold, the competing listings, tell them about them because I've seen all of the properties and been involved in many of the sales. So I know the inventory out there, so I can talk to them about, you know, how that property compares with their property, how it's different, what the market's like now versus what it was like at the time that those properties sold or didn't sell. So I can give them the full background on market conditions and how it's going to affect their property.
Dan, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, more about how to effectively market a home. We are here with Dan Ensel. You're watching Financial Wellness. He is the agent that everyone seems to be talking about because of the service that he's giving his clients. We'll be right back.
Janice is one of 4 million people suffering from Alzheimer's disease. There are days when she can't even remember the name of her illness. But thousands of researchers are working on a cure, so that one day we won't remember the name of it either.
For more information on Alzheimer's disease research, call for a free fact sheet. 1-800-438-4380.
When I have an asthma attack, I feel scared. Sometimes my parents have to take me to the hospital. I feel like a fish with no water.
You know how to react to their asthma attacks. Here's how to prevent them. Call 1-866-NO-ATTACKS. Visit www.noattacks.org or call your doctor. Because even one attack is one too many.
You're watching Financial Wellness. I'm Randy Ivers. We're talking to Dan Ensel, Santa Barbara's #1 agent. Tell me about this. We've talked about taking the listing. What do you do once you've taken the listing on a home to keep the people informed of what's going on?
What I try to do, Randy, is really communicate a lot with the sellers. They're anxious. It's a big deal for them. It's a lot of emotion involved. So I try to let them know everything that I'm doing to get the job done for them.
How so?
What I do for them is I give them regular reports on what's happening, who's showing the property when, give them copies of advertisements featuring their property, brochures, just letting them know everything I do for them. So they get a regular report of everything that's happened, copies of their ads, brochures, flyers, mailers, who's shown the property and when, feedback on it. So I really try to communicate with them regularly on what's happening with it and what I'm trying to do to get their property sold, so they know that they're getting everything done for their property that could possibly be done.
So is this a monthly report you're giving them every couple of weeks? What do you do?
They get a monthly report, but they'll also get communication more often than that. But they'll get the monthly report, which is sort of cumulative of everything that's happened since the last month there on their property.
Are there things that come out in these reports, these marketing reports, that help the seller or help you in marketing their home?
Absolutely. It's a lot of feedback, and what we'll find out is how many showings we're getting, get the feedback from the agents who've shown the property, whether their clients are interested, what they felt in terms of value of the house, if there's anything that could be done to make the property present better. So I share all that with the sellers there so they can get the feedback that I get from the showings that we have or the lack of showings that we have. That can tell you a lot also. So that's all the things that get shared with them in addition to the actual printed material that they get.
Dan, you're in a business where with little or no training, you could get a license.
Yes.
Very little education, you could apply for a real estate license. How does your law training and understand contractual law, without being too obvious and one-sided here, I mean, do people really appreciate that, the fact that they're dealing with a true professional?
Absolutely, Randy. I think that at the dollar amounts that these people are spending on the properties, they want somebody who's going to get the job done, no mistakes, no problems down the road for them. And I think that the fact that I've gone to law school, have a background as an attorney, legal training, it just sets you apart from a lot of other agents out there who...
Give me an example where where if you didn't have your background in legal contracts, that it made the difference.
Lots of times where you just review a contract and it's ambiguous in a way that doesn't benefit your client at all, so you need to clear up things so people's understandings are the same. It really prevents a lot of problems down the road. As long as everyone's getting along and everyone's happy, there are no problems. But as soon as things start to fall apart, then you look back at the contract, if it's ambiguous, then it could be a lot of problems for people down the road. And that's what you're trying to avoid. And I think that's what a legal background can help you. Just a lot of attention to detail, trying to figure out, what it says, what areas need to be cleared up, what areas are clear, what things do not reflect what the client really wants them to say in the contract. So I think a lot of legal training is very helpful.
Now you're handling all types of transactions, is that correct?
Yes, I've handled ranches, beach property, condominiums, estates, restaurants, commercial property, apartments, pretty much everything.
So commercial properties, is a completely different type of a sale than a ranch property?
Absolutely, yeah. They're different specialties entirely.
Dan, we really are out of time. Anticipating this interview, I've looked at a lot of your advertising, and you have a slogan or a saying that, and I'll paraphrase, it does not cost any more to work with the best. What do you mean by that?
The real estate fees are fairly standard. There's some flexibility in them, but they're fairly standard fees, and whether you get the very worst agent in town or the very best agent in town, it's going to cost you the same dollars there. So what I try to emphasize to people is, because that's the case, get the best one. They cost the same. Choose wisely, interview a lot of people, whether you're a buyer or a seller. There's a lot of good agents out there. Find one of them to represent you. Your transaction will go better, you'll be happier, you'll get more money for your property. If you're selling it, you'll find a better property. If you're a buyer, either way, find a good agent, and it's going to cost you the same.
As a recap, define the best. Somebody that's going to put the whole marketing together, what?
Again, it's going to depend on what you're looking for. You want somebody that specializes in your area, in your price range, and the type of property that you're looking for. And there's, again, the best is going to be determined by what you're looking for. There's plenty of good agents in town there, and what the best is really going to be determined of what you're looking for in the transaction. But the other part of my ads is, even though it doesn't cost you any more to work with the best, it can cost you plenty if you don't. And that's the flip side. You pick the wrong agent and it can be a really bad transaction. And that's what I try to educate both buyers and sellers on, is that's what you don't want to happen. Avoid that at all costs. Pick somebody good, cost you the same. Don't pick somebody who's not going to do the best job for you.
Great, it was a pleasure having you on the show. I know you have a website, people can visit you there. They can also call you. Thank you for coming on the show, by the way.
Thank you very much.
We're going to have you back.
Thank you very much.
You've been watching Financial Wellness. I'm Randy Alvarez. I wish you financial success.